If you've been following my channel for a little bit and watching the videos, you might be wondering, well, what would cause somebody's lymphatic system or my lymphatic system to become congested? How do I know that I should be addressing my lymphatic system? Watch this video because I'm going to tell you the 8 most common causes for a congested or stagnant lymphatic system. And you know what? I bet you some of them are going to surprise you because they sure took me for a surprise when I dug deeper. But it makes sense. It completely makes sense as to why these would ultimately cause our lymphatic fluid to not drain properly. Now, remember, when our lymph isn't draining, it means that our lymphatic system is not removing the waste products. So think of our body as becoming very gross. Like imagine if your sewer system wasn't removing the waste products from your house. How gross would your house get if it wasn't able to flush the toilet? Just as an example, it would eventually get really gross and uninhabitable. And the same thing that can happen in our body, meaning if our lymphatic fluid isn't moving and isn't draining, it can cause bigger problems. So the very first thing that causes lymphatic congestion or stagnation is lack of movement. Now remember, our lymphatic system does not have a pump of its own. The only way that our lymph fluid flows and drains is by us moving and contracting our muscles. So if we're sitting and we're sitting at a desk and then we sit in a car to get to work and then we sit in a car to take the kids to their sporting events and then we sit to eat dinner and then we sit on the couch to unwind, all of this sitting is not actually allowing the lymphatic fluid to drain, because remember, a lot of our lymph node clusters are found in our major joints. So when we sit, we're compressing those joints, restricting lymphatic flow. So if you're not moving a whole lot, and I'm not talking like running marathons or anything like that, but if you're literally not getting up and moving your body regularly, there's a good chance that your lymphatic system is becoming congested. So the first one is lack of movement. The second one that is very common is the types of clothing or the things that we put on our body. Now, let me preface this by saying, I'm not telling you you can't wear these things. What I am telling you though is when you take them off, maybe be mindful and do some type of lymphatic drainage. So what are some clothing or articles that can cause our fluid to become stagnant? Number one, for women, wearing underwire bras massively congests lymphatic fluid in our breast tissue. So if you wear an underwire bra, you might want to consider when you take it off to do some lymphatic drainage to get that lymphatic fluid that wasn't draining the entire time that you were wearing that bra, get it draining. It also means any type of clothing that is very restrictive and tight. So if you take something off, like your socks, and your socks leave marks on your skin, on your ankles. Those socks were preventing the lymphatic fluid from flowing while you were wearing them. So maybe doing things like putting your feet up on the wall, shaking them out, doing some lymphatic drainage might be wise. And that goes with things like wearing too tight of sports bras or wearing yoga wear that's too tight that you can see the stitching on your skin when you remove it. It can even be things like bracelets or watches. If you can see the outline when you take it off, I want you to think the entire time that I was wearing it, my lymphatic system, my lymphatic fluid below that area was not draining properly. Okay, so number 2 is the clothing that we choose to wear. Number 3, this one is probably going to surprise you guys, but I bet you that this is a super common cause because majority of the world is not doing this properly. Improper breathing. If we are breathing and doing shallow chest breathing from our shoulders, what is not happening is 1, we are not in a state of parasympathetic, meaning our nervous system is not in a rest, digest, and drain state. But the second part to that is the lymphatic fluid from our abdomen and our legs only drains when we're doing deep diaphragmatic breathing, meaning when we're breathing from our belly, our breath is literally propelling the fluid from our lower body up into the thoracic duct, through the cisterna chyli, up into the left subclavian vein. If we are not breathing properly, which most of us aren't, because most of us are in a chronic state of stress, we're not thinking about our breath. So if we're not thinking about our breath and we're not training ourselves to be belly breathers, we're going to end up having stagnant lymph, especially in our abdomen and lower limbs. So proper breathing is essential for proper lymphatic drainage. Number 4 is dehydration at a cellular level. Now, what does that mean? You could be drinking all the fluid under the sun, but if your body is not taking in that water, if it's not absorbing it, it is not actually supporting you. When you're dehydrated, your body can't drain. It doesn't have the fluid to use in order to remove the waste products that your body is making, whether it's from your gut and ultimately resulting in constipation, or your lymphatic fluid can also become quite sticky and thick. So instead of it being fluid-like water, it can become more like molasses. So some of the things that can contribute to dehydration is being mineral deficient, especially magnesium. We need magnesium in order to absorb the water. So if you drink a ton of water but you're peeing a ton, you're probably dehydrated, which could be affecting your body's ability to drain and move the lymph. Number 5 is consuming conventional dairy. Now, this is controversial. There's a lot of people out there who are like, dairy is not a problem. For some people it is, because dairy can also drive mucus. So if we're consuming conventional dairy, one of the problems is it's very mucousy. Now, if you're doing raw organic grass-fed dairy, that might be a different story, but not necessarily for everybody, because if you're sensitive to dairy and it drives inflammation, it absolutely can drive stagnation. A lot of people, when they're sick, I'll tell them to take out dairy because dairy can drive mucus. So if it's causing mucus and inflammation, and you tack on lack of movement, wearing improper clothing, not breathing properly, all these things, we're ultimately just adding a level to the stagnation or the thickness of the lymphatic fluid, making it harder to drain. Number 6 is having any lymph nodes removed. So what I mean by that is if you've had your tonsils removed or your adenoids removed, if you've had lymph nodes removed because of any type of biopsies or cancer, that 100% is going to affect how your lymphatic fluid drains, because you're removing part of the lymphatic system. That means that any of the fluid in the tissues in and around there are going to have to figure out an alternative way to drain, to move. So if you've had lymph nodes removed, it may be wise for you to do some manual massage and some manual movement to influence the fluid to move and drain. So any type of removal, radiation is another thing that can actually prevent proper drainage, because radiation causes the tissue to become fibrotic. And this I'm going to lump into number 7, which is any scars. So anytime we have a big scar, a scar tissue, it can be from a gallbladder removed, an appendix, a C-section, or it can be from an injury, like if we broke our bone and we needed surgery. Scar tissue prevents proper lymphatic drainage. Think about it. All of the lymphatic vessels are just below the surface of our skin. So if we have a large scar going through our skin, it's also going through other layers of our tissue, right? And that is ultimately fibrotic tissue. It's not the same as skin. It actually has to become stronger than skin, which will then alter how our lymphatic fluid drains. So we absolutely need to address scars and scar tissue in order for our lymphatic fluid to drain properly. Now, the last one, number 8, is having a chronic infection. So if you've had or are dealing with a chronic infection, such as mold, Lyme, Epstein-Barr, and there's many other ones, but those are just a few, or parasites even. What can happen is our lymphatic system, remember, is part of the immune system. So if it's constantly having to go and fight and try and address these infections, what's going to happen is things are going to slow down. You may end up feeling hard, swollen lymph nodes. You may feel like your fluid and things like that just don't drain. It feels like just really hard and stringy. It could be that there's a chronic infection in there that needs some support. So when I look at lymphatic drainage, those tend to be the 8 big things that cause congestion. Not to say that there's not others, but those are the big ones that cause congestion. So what I always recommend that my clients do is take a look and see which ones are you dealing with? Which ones are affecting you? And then you can make a game plan as to how you can best support your lymphatic system. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe so that you can see more of these videos and learn how you can absolutely support your drainage systems, including your lymph, at home.